Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I wanted to make a short video about the issue whether masculinism is a correct or legitimate response to feminism. Obviously from an Islamic perspective. And we'll talk about this again, but I wanted to keep this one short. Okay. So I think there are two things to consider in this respect. The first is the basis of an Islamic perspective or viewpoint is that our basic allegiance is to the truth. Al-Haq. That's one of the names of the God. One of the names of God. The God of Abraham. And the second and related point is that in order to get access to truth, you need to transcend your desires. You can't seek truth through desires. I mean, desires are legitimate human capacities without which we can't sustain our life. But desires are also hijab, veils, between us and the truth. So if you try to access desires, truth through desires, then you will contaminate the truth through with your desires. And basically what you will be doing, you will be following your desire, not the truth. And in a sense, then you will be making desires as your Lord, as your God, as your Master, depending on the degree to which you are subservient to your desires. But the point to note is that desires are not the way to truth. Truth is something objective, something. And obviously desires are by definition subjective. Okay, that's the first point. The second thing is what we are faced with today is modernity. And Islam is the exact opposite of modernity. So you can't have modernity and Islam. That's why modernist Islam or Islamic modernism is contradiction in terms. And the basis of modernity, the foundation of modernity is humanism. That's the worship of him, self-worship. And basically the worship is through desires. Islam, you worship God. Because God is the truth. And humanism can take different forms. And you can't say, you can't say one form of humanism is closer to Islam than the others. Obviously, there are always similarities because kufr and falsehood, which is zulm, doesn't create anything. It just places things where they don't belong, really. So it misplaces things. So when we reject humanism, because we reject self-worship, which is the worship of desire, which is ultimately worshipping shaitan. We reject all forms of self-worship. Can't say one form of self-worship is better than the others. That's very important point. So humanism or self-worship can take various forms. Some of those forms are more enduring than others. But depending on the circumstances, all of those forms are valid. They and obviously they are related to each other. Even if they fight among themselves, they are tied to this basic belief in self-worship. It's a bit like so humanism is deen or religion, and its different forms are its ideologies. Or like mazahib, a bit like how Muslims have Sunni and Shia and then Mu'tazila and all other schools. So those are ideologies, those are not religions, obviously. In a similar way, humanism is a religion, is a way of life, albeit a false religion, and it has its different ideologies, different interpretations. Okay, but the main point is we reject humanism. We also reject its all forms. You can't say that one form of humanism is better than the others. Okay, or we can align ourselves with it. I'm not talking about political alliance, which is more a creation of need and necessity, but I'm talking about ideological alliance. Okay, so humanism has three basic forms. Individualism. Individualism can take many different forms, but one of the most enduring and powerful form is liberalism. And then you have communitarianism. And nationalism is a form of that. And then you have worship of humanity at the level of species, say speciesism or something like that. And one of more enduring example of speciesism is Marxism. And obviously speciesism can be then, depending on speciesism is obviously closely related to communitarianism, because they both are attracted to a larger self than individual self. So self worship take the form of individual self here, and the self of community level self here, and the self at the level of species here. But the community level self and the species level self can also be, depending on their emphasis, more aligned to communitarianism or individualism, depending on. So at the level of struggle, Marxism is more aligned to communitarianism, but at the level of ideals, it's almost individualistic. If you look at Marx's ideal end state, like communist state, when scarcity would be overcome, that's totally individualistic in a sense. Anyway, so both feminism and masculinism are form of either you can say they can take the form of communitarianism or they can take the form of speciesism. So you worship the community of women, or you worship your desire as a woman, or you worship your desire as a man, for example. So you don't just want to fulfill your own desire, but you want to fulfill your own desire through the dominance of the desire of your whole group. So that's a subspecies level. So these are all form of self-worship. They are all form of humanism, and humanism is practically manifested in capitalist civilization. So they are all forms of capitalism as well. So today, individualism, liberalism is a capitalism. Nationalism is a form of capitalism. And Marxism is a form of capitalism, because they agree with the basic desire to worship your own self. And the concrete form this worship takes is the search for overcoming scarcity, which is manifested in capitalist civilization. So there's no choice between feminism and masculinism in this sense. So we reject liberalism, we reject humanism, we reject nationalism, and they're all kufr at the ideological level. We reject Marxism, we reject feminism, we reject masculinism, because they are all forms of self-worship. That's their reality. It doesn't mean that every woman who is attracted to feminism realizes that, In a similar fashion, everybody who is Muslim or Hindu doesn't mean that they realizes the level of their actual belief. So we deal with an individual person always individually. We don't, box people according to their ideologies. In Islam, we judge everybody according as a person. Doesn't matter whether they're Christian or Hindus. As a person, what they actually believe or what is their level of belief. And the same is with feminists and masculinists as well. Okay, so there's no alliance with masculinism against feminism or feminism against masculinism. They're all forms of kufr, and if you don't realize it, that it means you don't realize the essence of Islam to that extent. Okay, so that's the theoretical level debate here. But on the other hand, feminism is one of the most successful movements, humanist movement, capitalist movement. Masculinism, on the other hand, is just a joke, really. A reaction of some men without ideas, really, and without vision, and without, so in that sense, feminism should be taken seriously, but masculinism is just a joke. But I did this because some Muslim men are attracted towards that, and through that they see Muslim women through the eyes of masculinity, which is terrible, because all mu'minun are brothers and sisters, and that's part of our iman. We are guardians of each other, as Quran says, and we are the friends of each other, because our mutual friendship and our mutual allegiance to the truth, and degrading Muslim men or women in any sense is one of the major sins. So I think I'll stop here, and we'll continue this inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.